my grandfather, he's from around Jasper, Texas, southeast, St. Augustine, very deep East Texas, and he always has a lot of isms.
Yeah.
And they're gold. They just kind of come out of anywhere. Yeah. And typically when I'm talking to him, especially when I was growing up, I was complaining about a friend that I was having trouble with, and I was trying to get this friend to see a certain thing.
Yeah.
Like, just, no, you're not understanding. And my grandfather he always just whipped these things out of his pocket. And he said, sometimes you just got to let them walk to get there. And I was like,
good.
What? He's like, sometimes you just got to let them walk to get there.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
No, those things are so good.
Yeah. I'm trying to get him to just push them right there. Come to me. And now you got to let them walk. You got to let them walk.
I remember I first moved to New Orleans and had this little apartment, this big sort of ramshackle house on St. Charles. And like, we're there like 2 days. It's like one of these crazy tropical storms comes in. It's like rain and stuff. I go, wow, this storm is nuts. I'm talking to this lady. She's sitting on the porch. And she goes, don't like the weather? Just wait.
Yeah.
It'll change. And I go, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, because most of the stuff that drives me nuts that, like, my kids are into,
yep.
or fads or trends or whatever, they're, like, I think about the ones that I used to think that about.
Yeah.
Where are they now? They're gone.
They're gone.
It's a fad, you know? And so you're trying to arrest the fad or wrap. It's like, it'll take care of itself. It'll burn out.
Yeah, I think that it's the same thing like when we first had kids. If you didn't like what your kid's doing, or you're going through like not just that, but you're really having a rough patch.
Yeah.
The baby is irritable, everything. Every 2 weeks,
there's a phase.
it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's gone. And what was bothering you then, or what was having your trouble with now, is gone. It's the same way a lot of the times with our everyday interactions, which means it's happening to us too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Well, I think what your grandfather's expressing, and it's something you get when you talk to people who are much, much older, they have that philosophical view because they've been through it a lot of times, and they've been through longer cycles than you can. So understand that someone who's 80 years old has been through cycles that you're not even aware are cycles because you haven't been alive long enough.
Right.
Right? Like, when you're in high school, you're like, I'm going to be here for 4 years. That's crazy.
It does.
You've never been through a 4 year. You've never been like, oh, this thing takes 4 years, right?
Even the day feels long.
Yeah.
From like 8 to 3.
Exactly. And then, you get through it and you go, oh yeah, sometimes there's things that suck that last 4 years. Or right. And then that helps you when you have a bad president.
Right.
Or it helps you when you're, okay, I got to work this job for 4 years. But and then you go through a decade cycle of something. Then you go through a 2-decade cycle of something. Right. And you just start to get a sense, okay, it's all cyclical or it all passes, but I just wasn't aware of the time horizon yet. It was so long that I was mistaking it as forever or permanence.
Yeah.
But it's just as ephemeral and transient as a winter storm or any other thing, just over a longer period of time. And in that sense, when you study history, you go, oh yeah, remember like this dynasty in China that like we learned about in one paragraph, but lasted for 800 years.
Right, yeah.
Or even like, like they go like, are we Rome? Like people say this, like, are we, do you know how long the decline and fall of Rome was? It was like 800 years. Like that's not a thing to be worried about.
Right.
Like there's definitely things to be worried about, but like we should be so lucky.
Yeah.
Isn't
that true?
If the rise is as long, if the decline is as long as the rise, it will be over before you. Well after you. And so when that wisdom of like, oh yeah, this almost certainly is a phase, a fad, a cycle. And I just haven't endured something long enough to understand that that's what's happening.
Yeah, you just haven't been in it as long as you need to come out of it.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of your stoicism and all, do you find a lot of the wisdom that you've gained and interest comes from any of your grandparents at all?
Yeah, I think most elderly people are sort of by definition kind of naturally stoic. At that point, if you put 60, 70, 80 years on this planet, you start to get a sense of what's in your control, what isn't. Yeah. You start to get a sense of both the shortness and the interminableness of life.
Right.
You get a sense of the stupidity of human beings. You get a sense of how uncommon common sense is and how these kind of just basic principles need to be repeated over and over and over again. And yeah, I think definitely with my grandparents, but I think just and anytime you're around someone and they kind of just have that presence, that sort of even keelness, you're like, I want that.
Yeah.
That seems like a better way.
Yeah.
That's a better frequency than whatever I'm on here.
I think that a lot of what I talk about in the book and a lot of what you have in your books is the same idea of we are pushing and looking for that calm energy.
Yeah.
Like when I went to my grandparents, it did feel like everything slowed down.
Sure.
It did feel like I was secure and I was safe. And, my grandfather, you could ask him, everything was just so slow. You could say, hey, did you have that wrench in the shed? And he'd go, yeah. You know what I mean? You'd have 6 seconds before you'd ever get any kind of information. Or my favorite were when my grandmother and grandfather were in the same room, and she's going off about something. She's telling me about this, and the cat, and we had something problem. She's got some this, and she's just talking on it. And he usually would just have something, and maybe it's the paper, and she's grappling about something. He's going, uh-huh. Like she's talking and he's going, yeah, I know it. And he's every once in a while he'd give her a cockeyed look, but it's just this sense of they've lived long enough that they've seen it all. They felt it all.
How long were your grandparents married?
They're still married.
How long is that?
Oh my goodness. That's over 60 years.
So like they've had bad decades.
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you can wrap your head, you go like, man, my wife and I have been fighting so much lately.
Right.
It's like been like 2 weeks of
exactly.
like whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you imagine? They're probably like, oh man, 72. I don't know. Like we slept in 7 separate bedrooms for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, you elongate the scale.
Yeah.
And all the things that feel very urgent and massively significant, their significance is reduced.
Yeah. My favorite's when she just totally roasts him right in front of him, and he does not even care. Yeah. She's like complaining about his medicine routine or something, or what he did, and he just doesn't even faze him. And I see that. Let's put it like in a practical sense of you're at work, you have an email or whatever. In that moment, you get heated. You want to just send that text back, that email back. Rarely, if you wait just one day, does it have nearly the impact or consequence, or you really even have the care to do what you were going to do the day before, or say what you were going to say.